Party, who are competing to win your votes for parliamentary seats to represent Manchester Central Ward. We have with us, and we start with the Green Party, Ekua Beyuno. Is that correct? I hope so. From the Workers' Party of Britain, Paham Hashmi. From Independent Party, Sabina Khan. From the Social Democratic Party, Sebastian Moore. The Communist Future Party, Katrina Rylands. Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Unfortunately, candidates from the Conservative Party, Scott Smith, Reform UK Party, David Brown, and Labour's Lucy Powell, as well as the Independent Party, Albati Kalonda, are not with us this evening, as well as Chris Northwood. Due to unforeseen circumstances, they were unable to make it here this evening. So they're lost, we say. Okay, right. So a very warm welcome to you all. If we could start with opening statements from each candidate. You all have a minute each. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Khizra. You want to invite me up?
Yes.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
My name is Ekua Beyuno. I am, as I was introduced previously, the Green Party candidate for this constituency, which is first of all, let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for organising this. I think it's really important for us to come together and actually get involved in the political life of this city. And I'm here just to share with you why I think the Green Party's policies and why myself as a candidate are the person best placed to represent. I'm really whispering. Represent you in Westminster. I have been a councillor. I was a councillor in Hume, which was previously in Manchester Central, but with boundary changes has been taken out. And one of the things I really learned from that process is that having just a few Green Party candidates and councillors are really able to punch way above our weight and influence the government. It's more than likely that we will have a Labour government. That's what all reports are predicting. And what's going to be important in that case is that we have people in Westminster with the principles, the values, the vision and the aims who can really hold that government to account. I'm standing on a platform on we have a wonderful manifesto, and I'm sure you'll ask me questions and I can go through
10
that.
seconds if you don't
And
mind.
the things that are most important to me are housing. I've seen the difficulty. Is this one better? Yeah. I've seen the difficulties that we have. It's a crisis that we're facing, and we really need to address that. And the other is to see peace in Palestine and calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. These are the two main platforms that I'm standing on.
Thank you. If you don't mind, thank you. And if you could keep it within the time. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, hello and assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I must say I'm very disappointed that Labour has not turned up. It seems that they have a habit of abstaining from the seaside vote and abstaining from this hustings. So yeah, just make a note of that. And yeah, so I'm here pretty much mainly for justice. And when I talk about justice, I mean the justice here, the justice in Palestine, and justice everywhere. I think it's a very big tragedy what's happening with the genocide, and I'm not apologetic about my stance on that and being here solely motivated by that, but extending that to the tragedies that we also see here, mainly with the NHS, homelessness, and many other problems. But for me, the main thing is to have justice everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this platform. I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me to this platform as well. It's the first time that I've actually stood up as a candidate in a political election. I understand the importance of it and I only put myself forward because I feel that I can carry the burden that this responsibility and this role holds. Me being a qualified lecturer serving for more than 25 years in Manchester, I've worked for 5 years with Greater Manchester Police in a voluntary capacity. I've worked, and I still do radio, so media communication for the past 13 years. I've published author of 7 books. I'd like to offer all of that independent struggle of my own and extend that out to the community to serve you. I don't have any agendas of my own, but my agenda will be what you want me to channel and what you want me to fight for. I would like to be the voice. I do have a husky voice and I do have a strong voice. Yeah, so it does stand out. And I think being a teacher, you know, I've worked with people from different levels, at different levels. I'm currently working for one of the universities in Manchester. I feel that I can represent the community. I am from Cheetham Hill, and open the floor for questions when it's my turn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a bit nervous speaking into a microphone like this. I don't know how close to get. Thank you very much for hosting this tonight, because I was quite concerned that this general election would happen without having the chance to go to a hustings. I think that's so important that we candidates speak to the electorate and we say what we're going to do if we get elected. I agree with Parham. I think it's shocking that the other candidates haven't turned up. My name is Sebastian. I'm standing for the Social Democratic Party, and I'll try and be brief and tell you a little bit about the party. So we're economically left-leaning, and we're socially a bit more conservative. What does that mean in practice? So let me tell you about 3 things. Economy, it means renationalising our railways, our utilities. On culture, we are big proponents of the family and of the community, so we think government policy should reflect that, to support those things. And on democracy, we're Democrats, so we believe that the Parliament should represent what the voters have voted for.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for inviting us along tonight. I'm Katrina Rylands, I'm standing for Communist Future. A lot of us on this platform today, I think, will agree in recognising some of the massive things that are wrong in society, the genocide in Gaza that our own government is complicit in, the problems with the NHS, the poverty that exists in this country. The reason we're standing is because we do think there is an alternative to that. When we look at those problems in society, they fill us with despair and hopelessness, but we think there is an explanation for what is going on in society, and that it is all connected to it. The poverty that exists in this country, the genocide in Gaza, wars all over the world are connected because they are all the result of a capitalist system that prioritises profit above all else. The fact that our government allows weapons to be sold to Israel so that money can be made off the murder of Palestinians, all of these things are rooted in the same thing, and unless we are prepared to contend with what is creating these problems, they will keep on occurring over and over again. We need to have a new vision of society, and that is what we stand for. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your passionate introductions. Right. We've received a lot of questions from our community since we've advertised this as you can imagine. However, in the interest of time, we had to reduce them down to pressing matters that we felt everybody sort of raised issues about. So our first question, and rightly so, is regarding what's happening in Khizra currently. Okay. So this question is a question that's come in. How do you plan to strengthen laws barring British trade with settlements, deny visas to Israeli politicians and militants involved in settlement expansions, and impose sanctions on companies named by the UN as operating in occupied territories? Should we start with yourself, Becky? Yeah. Can we pass the mic down, please? Oh no, I'll start with you every time. Just the first question.
I think it's really important to be aware that as a mainstream party, we were the first political party that stood up straight away calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And the reason we were able to do that, which you think, why wouldn't everybody be able to do that, is because we've had a principled stance in terms of our international politics and our understanding of fairness, equality, and the sanctity of life from forever. We didn't need to wait. We knew what was the right position to take. In terms of the boycott, disinvestment, and sanction of Israel. We are 100% behind that, and that means that we have laid out a full bulleted point within our manifesto in terms of how we will support the search for a peaceful solution in Palestine that is there for all people, and that we will support the ICC judgment to bring war criminals to justice. For me, that's been one of the most appalling things, that we've sat by and let an individual actually run a country and allow that to happen in full sight. That needs to be one of the starting points, that an individual takes full responsibility, but also the nation elected them. I can see a signal that I need to stop. But we are fully behind all processes to bring about peace in the region.
Yes, so our policy is very unique to all the parties here, and our solution to what's happening in Gaza is pretty much the only party that's advocating for it, and we're pro the one-state solution. Now, we could sit here and say, you know, it needs to be Israel and Palestine and, you know, go down that route, but we've seen what's happened since 1948. And truth be told, since 1948, the apartheid, the genocide, has been experienced by the Palestinian people, and the only way that we can combat the apartheid is by dismantling it. And for people to live like they did before 1948, where Jews, Christians, Muslims lived in harmony side by side, I truly think this is the one and only solution to it. Now, people are talking about how we're going to make that happen from the perspective of the UK. What people don't realise is that we have massive leverage in what happens in Israel. We send them a lot of military aid. We are the sole reason that Israel can defend itself from everyone. So I think that we have an obligation to stand against Israel and what they're doing in Gaza and the West Bank. Thank you.
Hi, okay, so in response to the question, being British born, I feel the same way that everyone else would have felt and would have heard of the issue and reacted or responded to the receiving of information about the situation that's occurring in Gaza. I think in my lifetime I must have heard of it erupt about 3 times, and then there'd be a silence because media is silence. Me belonging to media, I know that there's a cap on what can be said, on what you can mention and how much you can talk about it or how much you see, and all of a sudden when you see the floodgates open and videos and things come through and you start seeing, oh my God, you know, is this actually happening? Then you have to hold your MPs and your parliamentarians to account to say, well, you know what? We step in and we take from these lands, whether it be Kashmir, whether it be Palestine, whether it be any other country, we go in and we take from them what we want, and then we leave them in disputed territories, and we leave them to fight for themselves, and they're fighting unaided, and then you're providing arms to them, to the other side. And I believe that, you know, if we say within our home we want peace,
Thank you.
so why don't we want it worldwide? We should fight for it worldwide.
I think what's happening over there is unimaginable, and I think that none of us in this room can articulate the suffering that people in that region are going through. We as a party, I mean, along with others, want to see an immediate cessation of violence, and we would play our part, however unlikely it is that we'll be in government in the future. We would play our part internationally to cooperate and to pursue that. I think we also have to be realistic, though, and see the fact that this, not just in this seat in Manchester Central, but also nationally, are any of our parties going to be in power? Are we going to achieve something? I think we have to contribute, and I'm hoping that we're all doing this. We have to contribute to a politics in which we can improve the dialogue, we can improve the systems in which we do things so that we can create an arena in order to achieve peace internationally.
I think you're absolutely right. Nobody sitting here is going to be forming the next government. It is more than likely going to be a Labour government, and we have to be honest about what we're contending with the Labour government. They've shown us exactly where they stand on Gaza, where they stand on Palestine. So what can we do with your vote? If you vote for any of us, what can we do? We can use the platform given by that vote to support and to give media attention to and give a platform to the movements that are standing for Palestine, the workers' movement that is standing for Palestine, the community movements that are standing for Palestine. In Ireland, those movements have been able to pressure the Irish government to recognise the state of Palestine, and in Spain as well, the workers' movement has been able to turn away boats with Israeli weapons on them and refuse to let them dock. We can't form the next government, but we can support those movements, and we can give whatever media attention we get, we can use that to create a platform for those movements if we're honest about what the Labour Party represents and if we're able to use that support.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Right, so based on the responses that you've had, I will open the floor for questions from the audience. If anyone wants to ask a question, kindly raise your hand. Yes, gentleman up front. Can you raise your voice? I don't think we have a green mic.
Clearly, the answers to that question are very similar, and as you said, we're human beings, so they should really be similar. After the elections, people are representing various parties or themselves as independents. Would you agree to work on this and come together and pressure the government, which probably going to be a Labour government, because as you are aware, UK has already tried to stall the ICC process, which has come a bit of a shock. What can, parties including the Green Party, would they actually take action against the government rather than just words?
Thank you.
I have a feeling that's questions to me to start, but I'm sure the others will join in. Because yes, we have probably a slightly larger ambition to be able to influence in Westminster, so there will be political action that we can take. As a membership, I think we're growing stronger in terms of we have people joining us all the time from communities who will really work with us to take action. We're probably one of the most visible parties who are out on the protests. We have been part of influencing trade unions in terms of actions they can take. I would say that being a member of the Green Party gives me so much strength, because what we believe in and what we can bring, I think can create real change. And we've seen that our growth has been significant, and with that growth, with you basically as part of our membership, we're going to continue to grow and hold this government to account, and I know that we can do that.
Yeah, so I kind of disagree actually in regards to what Sebastian said. I think even though it is one seat, and you're very correct, there's probably not a whole lot of influence we could bring to Parliament on that front, yes. However, what this is about, it's about the symbol. It's about challenging the status quo. It's about holding ourselves against Labour and showing a symbol of resistance. Because the truth be told, Labour's not here. They don't care about your questions. They don't care about your opinion, right? Because if they did, they would be here. Lucy Powell is very much aware of this event, and she chose not to be here. You could go on her Twitter, she's in Cheshire right now. She does not care about this constituency, right? And it's about us speaking out, and it's our words that will make differences. Now, in regards to just this one seat, right, what can I do, right? I've got these policies, how am I going to enforce it? Well, for me, I will be that symbol of resistance against what the British government is doing. Personally, for me, I've made a personal pledge, this has nothing to do with the party, that if I do get elected for Manchester Central, I will go into Palestine and I will show people the apartheid, the genocide, and the injustice these people are facing.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. You've always voted for Labour, you've always voted for the Tories, you've always got that, and you're not happy with it, that's why you're looking for change. So change is in front of you. All the people that care about what you want to ask and are here to answer your questions are sitting here in front of you. There's no pressure to make any particular choice, but my stance is, my pledge is, because I don't have a manifesto of my own, because it's not my political agenda, my topics are what matters to you. So if it matters to you, then I'll fight for it and I'll give them a good fight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm sensing a lot of anti-Labour rhetoric, so I fully support that. No, I think, I can't speak for my party because I don't know what my party would do. The question was about post-election. Personally, I would love it if the other candidates were willing, no matter who wins, to work on this together and to come together. I think that's true for a lot of this, is that the issue we're dealing with in our politics is that we've got a two-party system and we just have to kind of go back and forth between the two of them each election. We don't have a real choice. So if we can work together and offer people a real choice, then I think that would be really, really valuable for the citizens here.
Thank you very much.
In response to your question, yeah, absolutely. Everyone here should join together in action. And I think that there's two things that are required. First of all, that we all join together in action. But second of all, that we develop a political alternative. And that requires an understanding of why these things are happening. So for me, I got interested in politics, became political with the war in Iraq. I went to the demo in London where 2 million people were. We see these things happen over and over again, and until we start to deal with what is at the root of them, and that requires an alternative, then we're not going to be able to stop those things. We need action in the here and now, and that requires all of us to join together, but we need a clear political alternative, one that contends with the imperialist capitalist system itself that is the root of these constant wars and constant crisis, economic crisis, health crisis, environmental crisis. All of these crises that we're experiencing, there is something at the root of it all, and until we have a system-wide alternative, we're not going to be able to stop those things. So
Thank you very
that's
much.
what we should.
Thank you. Okay, shall we take another question from the audience before we move on? Any other questions based on what you've had? Yes, gentleman in the middle.
I share your dream of not having a border, but I ban all borders, because what borders do is create a divide, right? A physical divide, and that divide then carries on within your heart. However, we are where we are, so a one-state solution is never going to happen. Not today, not tomorrow. You're not going to sell that to anybody. Okay, nobody's going to buy that. Okay. Now, as far as Labour not being here or the Conservatives not here, it's irrelevant. I think what we want to do is to listen to what you have to say, right? What you're like, okay? And that's important. And the other thing is that between my niece and I think we've been to every rally on a Saturday or a Thursday evening, and I think we're on 36 weeks or something. Okay. So, please carry on. I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken to see what I see happening. What I don't see is solutions. So I'm not going to stand here and knock you, Labour, or anybody else. I have a solution. I have a solution. Okay, do you want me to share it with you? Right, I'll share it with you. Whilst the leaders are sitting with Qatar, what are the Qataris doing? What are the Saudi Arabians doing?
Keep the question short if you don't mind. Thank you.
And what are the other Arab nations doing? They are doing nothing at all. If you switch off the oil today, I tell you, there'll be ceasefire tomorrow.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You'll have to buy some more.
Fantastic, thank you. Just a kind reminder to everybody, obviously in the interest of time, try and keep your questions as short as you can, as concise as you can. If you do have a question for a specific candidate, then state that, and obviously the mic will go to that individual rather than everybody. Okay.
Can I answer his question?
Sure, I'll give you 30 seconds. Go for it.
I don't know if it will be 30 seconds, but yeah, thank you to that gentleman for the question. I do very much disagree. I do think that we have to challenge the status quo, because the truth of the fact is that if we just listen to the mainstream narrative, nothing will ever change, right? It's people like me who come up with these radical solutions, which, yes, they are very ambitious. Yes, it's going to be very hard to achieve, but how else are we ever going to get to a world where there's fairness and justice if we don't push for these things? Now, you mentioned the Qataris, the Arabs. Yes, every country should be standing up to it. But the problem is that I'm a candidate here, not in Qatar, not in Saudi Arabia, right? Now, you could keep blaming those countries, but that's a smokescreen, because that distracts us from what's happening here, right? I could change our policies here. I can't change the policies in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, that's my answer.
You can have 10 minutes with me afterwards.
There'll be plenty of time afterwards to network, so feel free to. Right, so the next set of questions are with regards to the NHS. So currently the NHS is underfunded, doctors are underpaid, work pressures are immense due to understaffed wards and GP surgeries. This creates unsafe work environments and drives many doctors to leave the NHS for better opportunities in Canada, the Middle East and Australia, where they find better work-life balance, pay and appreciation for their general skill set. What steps will you take to retain the current and the future medical workforce? Will you support the Rest, Recovery and Restore report as outlined by the BMA recently to prevent the attrition of doctors? Who wishes to start?
This is such an important subject because it impacts on all of us. It's working. Yeah. Okay. I think there are various things that I would really like us to address. Yes, in our manifesto, we've talked about refunding the NHS, but we've also got to halt the sell-off, which has been happening under the guise of the integrated care boards. I've been fighting, I feel, for years around what the integrated care boards have actually done, which is basically selling off the NHS by stealth and pretending that somehow at a local level we are protecting services and we're not. We're looking at a radical reshifting and restructuring of the NHS. What we've got to look at is the NHS was founded at the end of the Second World War, actually out of the Socialist Health Association, and it was really fit for purpose. It was a radical way of looking at caring for people. And we need to actually look at that and see what do we need now for a national health service, and that's what we will do in the Green Party, and properly invest in that. The sort of brain drain that you're talking about is, I guess, the tip of the iceberg, and it's really important. Of course it's important that we keep the people who we train and who have dedicated their lives to caring for people in this country and make sure they're rewarded. But that goes throughout all structures within the NHS. We need to see that these are properly invested in, and it comes from a root of actually putting people first before profit. We cannot have a health service that is based on making money.
Excellent, thank you very much. If we could just switch up the in the pattern that we answered. Sebastian, do you want to go next?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for that.
It's on, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Rest, Recovery, Restore report.
Yes, by the BMA.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, it's worth looking it up.
No, I will do, but I want to also make clear that I am standing up and standing for election as a member of the public, not as a politician that doesn't necessarily have time to read all of these reports. It's something I will do, for sure, and it's something I hope to do in the future, but I think we have to be honest about the fact that none of us here, well, maybe with an exception of Akua, just are not politicians, because Akua was a councillor, weren't you? No, what we would suggest in the SDP is that a national care service. At the moment, social care is a huge part of the problem. people are taking up beds in the NHS that should be moved out into good social care. So we would implement a national care service which would patch up the system that at the moment is disintegrated between, spread. Sometimes the NHS is responsible in certain areas, sometimes local authorities. We've created a national care service in the true fashion of old Labour, which I like to think is where the SDP really comes from. It breaks away from the old Labour, which is who set up the NHS in the first place.
Just to respond to your points with regards to the report and the BMA published, the British Medical Association. I understand your policies in terms of reforming the healthcare system. However, don't you think it's important that the individuals who make up the healthcare system have policies in place that protects them?
Say that again.
So my question was with regards to, you mentioned...
No, just the last bit, I missed the last bit.
Oh, of course. So don't you think that it's important to have policies in place that protect the current medical workforce that we have? We have plenty of doctors and dentists in the audience, as well as some of the candidates, I believe. So don't you think that measures need to be put in place to ensure that they're paid really well, that they're, that they're not overworked essentially, or worked to the bone and not appreciated?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we often talk about recruitment. You mentioned this in the question, one of the biggest problems is retention.
Absolutely.
Why are our doctors and nurses going abroad, going to other countries? The NHS was once admired worldwide as a beacon of what we can achieve in this country, and we've got to get back to that. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Who's next?
Yes, Sabina?
Yeah. Okay, so I think the NHS, similar to the education department, this is something that we as British people are really proud of, and we have been proud of as we've been going on. We need to build on that momentum, so there's no point selling off your national assets and privatising everything, because every time you go to make an appointment at the dentist, they won't see you under the NHS. If you're an NHS patient, they won't see you as a doctor. But if you say you're going private, immediately the diary becomes open. I understand that the people in the profession are under pressure as well, but it's when practice is open and they can see the loophole in the systems to make money, and then where do you draw the line? Is it a business or is it a state service? And who suffers if we take state service away and we repat it and we just put it all into private sector? I'm a business studies teacher and I can see it all happening, and as well I live in the UK and we suffer from these experiences, whether we're talking about opticians, whether we're talking about dentists, whether we're talking about doctors, and the working professions at the heart of it, obviously they're in there to earn money as well because that's their paid profession, but at the same time the system is not supporting them. So we need to look at building up a better system that is free for all, accessible for all, and fair.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sabina.
Yeah, thank you.
On the question of the BMA report and healthcare workers, I think it's absolutely our responsibility of everybody on the platform to use whatever media attention we get, whatever platform to support the demands that are coming from workers in those areas themselves, and they will have the best kind of knowledge of their own situation. And we can use our platform to promote and kind of underpin the demands to support doctors who've been taking strike action, to use whatever platform or whatever support we can to also support and give them a platform on that. But I also agree with what the Green Party candidate said, that this is a wider question of the problem of our healthcare system itself that puts profit before people. And I guess from our perspective as communists, we have an idea about what is underpinning that itself in terms of the system which is built around profit, and that trying to transform healthcare, transform any aspect of our everyday lives, the things that matter to us, requires a completely different way of living, where we prioritise people, where we prioritise the needs of people and not what will make money for businesses or investors or whatever it might be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I actually... Is the mic working? Yeah, it's a bit weird. So in my introduction, I got a bit carried away. I've actually worked in the NHS my whole adult life. I started as an NHS pharmacist and I'm currently retraining as a doctor. Now, in regards to the BMA question, I may be a little bit biased, but I am a member of BMA and I wholeheartedly support their pledge. I see these problems that we have. I see it firsthand now. We could spend all day talking about it. One of the things that I find particularly shocking is that here in Manchester, if you are an adult and you have ADHD, you will have to wait for 7 years before you are seen by a consultant. Now, we know how bad the mental health problem is. We know how bad suicide is. And then when you see figures like that, you sort of understand where it's going wrong. Now, in Manchester, the NHS hospital is £180 million in debt. £180 million. Now, every minute in this country, the Defence Secretary spends £12,000 on nuclear deterrence. Now, in 1 hour, that's £720,000. In 4 hours, we will pay that debt in Manchester. So, this is obviously a big problem, and the solution really is that we need to find a way to stop spending money where it's going to wars and in places where it's not helping our most vulnerable, and take that fund and put it back in our NHS, because we could, the problem in the NHS is apparent to everyone. We all know the faults with it. We all know you can't get a GP appointment. We all know you can't see an NHS dentist. But the solution to that comes from where we take that money, where that surplus comes from, and that's where the Workers' Party has a solution.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, do you have any questions for the audience? Do you have any questions from the audience? Yes, gentlemen in the back.
I've sat here for the past hour and come to understand a neutral ground from
Sorry,
all.
raise your voice, please.
I've sat here for the past hour and come to understand a neutral ground from all of you, which is a vote for Labour is a vote for genocide. My question is regarding the immigration laws the Tories, the Labours and the Reform want to put through, as a lot of employees of the NHS are from cultural backgrounds and are immigrants. So my question to you is, what will you do regarding these immigration laws?
Thank you.
So I'm not the only person standing in this constituency that would support decreasing net migration. I don't know, would any of the others? Sorry, up here tonight. I don't care about people that aren't here tonight. The SDP's policy on this is to decrease net migration. The target would be something like 50,000 net per year. Obviously, you're never going to get it exact. This is important for a couple of reasons. One, it's democratically popular, so a majority of the people have been in support of decreasing net migration for a considerable length of time. Two, we can't keep continuing to fill our labour shortages with people from abroad, depriving those countries of good qualified nurses, doctors, teachers, etc. So it's important we address this. We are a party that is pro-immigration. 50,000 net migration means about 600,000 people coming in each year, because there are about 550,000 that leave, give or take each year. But that is, I think, a distinctive position for the SDP to the others.
Okay, no offence on that, but I disagree with the fact that why should we be reducing migration? If you look around the room, everybody here is as a result of migration, whether it's because you've actually come here, because your parents have brought you here, or you've been born here through migrant parents, or you simply enjoy the food that migration has offered. Yeah? There's plenty that migrants have offered. If you take the migrants away, recently in the campaigns that other people, I'm not going to mention the names because they're not here, I've been hearing, and it's just clearly hate, and it's racism, and it's hate, and it's things that are not nice, people being told to go back home. I remember growing up in Longside, and as I used to walk to school, I used to see on the wall, it said, go back home. And then underneath it, there used to be other graffiti saying that, 95% of the wealth lies with 5% of the population, and 5% of the wealth lies with 95% of the population. And through graffiti, I was seeing people coming out with, statements, and I was trying to understand what these statements actually meant. Was because you can't rob people of their life and get them to come to your country when it suits you, when you need a doctor, when you need a dentist, when you need, a carer. You can't call migrants and then later tell them to go back home. Where is home for anyone? Where is home for the English people? Or were the English people not once migrated to the UK? That's all I've got to say for that. I'm just going to sink in.
Well, I'll respond.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
Was
breaking.
that the
Yeah, no, I
policy?
understand.
Was that the policy?
I don't know if I'm breaking the order here, but
If
it's
it's-
okay. It's got nothing to do with racism. I think that's important. There is a growing, a huge amount of people in this country that believe, and as I said, a majority, that believe that we should have sensible immigration policy. Those people aren't racist. There are some people that are racist out there, but those people aren't racist. The majority of the country are not racist. Okay?
Sometimes these policies stem from it. So if you hear the concept,
Shall we?
go back home.
Sorry.
Can I just
Let's not
quickly?
finish.
So our policy on this is very sensible. Can I just finish this? Our policy on this is very sensible. We had sensible migration policy for many, many years, up until New Labour, when it started to go up, and then in the last couple of years, it's gone up to 745,000 net in 2022. This is huge numbers. This is unsustainable, no matter what country. I've been an immigrant. I lived in other countries, right? It's nothing to do with not liking people from another country or anything like that. It's about having sensible migration policy.
No, but
Okay.
migration policies, look, if there's a shortage, if there's a shortage of doctors and there's a shortage of a profession, then get the education policies in line with that to educate them. Why are you giving our students, why they're having to loan out fees, £60,000 a year, get themselves into debt? So many students are not even wanting to go to university. Families can't afford to send their kids to university. Then you put them on apprenticeship courses, and after that, after the age of 19, there is no help with helping anyone get a job.
Thank you.
Yeah? So you're left on your own.
Thank you, Serena. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, yes, so we've got very opposing views there, clearly. Well, the Workers' Party actually has quite a balanced view on this, right? There's things that we could take from both, speeches there. However, I think, Sebastian's point about, migration in general is that, I do agree that it does need to be a little bit better controlled, for sure. It's a small island, and there's only so many people that can fit here at the end of the day, right? So, in regards to the migration, in the Workers' Party, we recognise that far-right groups such as Reform have stroked anxiety amongst people in regards to the things that they do say about it. However, we do need to control it, and we need to make a distinction between refugees and migrants. Now, obviously, migrant workers are people who fill the gaps in the labour market, people who work in the NHS, such as myself. The NHS is made up of 40% ethnic minorities. If we deported all the ethnic minorities in this country, there would be no NHS. It would finish tomorrow. So, we do need to, however, recognise the inflow from refugees. We pay France, or we did pay France, £500 million to control the people that are leaving the shores of France and coming here. And they have done absolutely nothing. Our Navy is in the Red Sea, where they've got no business in being, by the way. And if they were here, back at home, protecting our borders, maybe the refugee problem would be slightly better. But I think overall, it's very important for us to take a balanced approach. And, it's not, while some of the far right do certainly use racism, and we've seen that with Reform, with the Islamophobia, and it always seems to be Islamophobia when it comes to migrants. It's as if no other religion exists when it comes to migrants. And that is something that we need to speak out against. But,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would really like to answer this question. It's a really important one. The first thing I'd like us to look at is what is democracy. The idea that you can quote a figure, that the democratic process that so many people want to see controls on migration. To have a democracy, you need things like a democratic press. You need to have a press and a media that isn't pushing lies and peddling images around people being different and being alien to this nation. And I think until we have that, we actually don't have a democracy in this country. So what do we really need to do? From a perspective of the world, we need to be more invested in what's actually going on in the world, so we see conditions for all people everywhere being addressed. We particularly belong to an international community. Many of us aren't just talking about sort of some distant something going on in our heads. It's about people we care about, yes. People who look like us, people who come from our backgrounds. And what we want to see is the same opportunities available everywhere in the world. That's the only way we're going to address this. The idea of creating borders or what was it you're saying, numbers, caps on how many people can come based on how many people can leave. These are not real factors. Real factors is we need to build a global community where everybody has the same rights in terms of education, healthcare, housing, all those things that make actually human rights. And let's not fake ourselves in believing that humanity actually has this issue and wants to see this. That's not true. That's how the media's portrayed it. Let's just stand up for people. I just find this whole idea around migration has become a weapon, and it has become racialized. I think that's very naive for you to believe that it isn't based on that. So let's look at some practical things that we'll do as the Green Party. First of all, we will ensure a humane asylum and immigration system that treats all individuals with dignity. That, I think, is the most important. That's what we've seen. A real removal of actually regarding people, particularly melanated people, as real human beings and treating them fairly and equally. We also want, when people are here, definitely they need to provide access to public services for all residents, regardless of immigration status. The idea that you're going to be turning away people who are really ill from our hospitals, that isn't the society that most people want. We're actually a society of really decent people. That's what I believe in, decent people, and that's what we want. We don't want to see anyone suffering. We want a country that can provide for that. And we also want to promote community integration and support for refugees and asylum seekers when they come. These are the things that the Green Party stand for, because we believe in a greener, fairer world. And we can start here in Manchester Central by electing a Green MP who will promote the rights of everyone.
Yes. Katrina, do you have anything to add, or should I say?
Thank you. As a communist, obviously when we talk about communism, we're talking about a future without borders, as someone mentioned earlier. That's not something that's going to happen overnight, but that's the world that we're talking about, where we don't separate ourselves from each other, where we don't have these artificial militarised borders that police the movement of people and often separate families from each other. But in terms of thinking about the society that we're in right now, if we think about the migration system itself, we have to be honest that system is exploitative. The UK government doesn't allow immigrants in out of the kindness of its heart. It allows them in to exploit them as part of this system, and it also exploits the working class who are born in Britain of whatever race as well. And from our perspective, we've been canvassing in like Ancoats, traditional white British areas, and people raise these questions around immigration. It's not something you can dismiss, but it's something that we need to look at the roots of why these problems are happening for people and how we can actually tackle it. And from our perspective, the way that we tackle that is by thinking about the solidarity and the similarities that these people have. Both sides are being exploited by this system. Who's benefiting from it? People at the top of society who are making money out of shipping people everywhere, splitting up families, destroying people's lives. Why are most people migrating in the first place? Because of NATO's wars, because of deprivation caused by a global system that prioritises those at the top. These are the reason it's happening in the first place. We want a society in the future where people can go and live and be wherever they want to be. But right now, looking at our society, it's about understanding that that migration that is happening. I'm opposed to any militarised borders, any immigration controls, but I'm also aware that migration is a process that is used and exploited by capitalism to benefit those at the top. The only way we can try and push against it is by finding solidarity between those at the bottom of society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I respond?
I'm going to have to decline on that one. Is that okay? Keep holding it.
It's not okay. But...
There will be closing statements towards the end, so incorporate into that. Okay, any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'll go with the gentleman who had his hand first, with the glasses in the back, yes. Are you okay to start?
Hi guys, first and foremost I think it's an absolute pleasure having all of you guys here, so yeah, fantastic. I am a full-time teacher and I do work for the council, by the way, so just one of my colleagues has just posted this in my WhatsApp group and asked the following question. 44.7% of children aged 0 to 15 are living in poverty in Manchester. How will you all please tackle this if you are all elected? Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, should we start with Sabina?
Okay, hi, brilliant question. I was wondering when someone was going to ask something about education. Okay, so been worked around all different kind of schools, ages, primary schools, secondary schools, Perus, which are the most difficult, challenging schools, colleges, universities, and the problem is that the educational establishments are not interlinking. So from schools, the problems are being passed on to high schools to college, college onto university, but because when they go to university, it's not maybe free for anyone, so those problems get pushed apart if people are not diagnosed with issues or learning difficulties. So at the heart of it, the children suffer. I mean, social services and other supporting systems that are in place are not working as hard because they're not funded. We used to have social clubs, we used to have out-of-school activities, and schools used to get funding. Now schools are running like businesses. As soon as a school gets statemented, you know, and under special measures, it gets reformed and becomes an academy or becomes a trust. And parents don't know what kind of quality of education the children are getting. They're sending their children to school because not looking at Ofsted reports, because those people that are looking at the Ofsted reports are the ones that are most privileged and able to move out into good areas for the purpose of schooling their children, and they can even afford to take their children into private education. But if we're relying on state schools, we need to put the money and invest in our children. Yeah, so let's reshuffle the budget and let's get the money spent on the next generation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to address...
Just before we move on, just to do with this, if that's okay, just to add to it. So currently, schools receive a budget for the child premium, people premium budget. Each school receives this to ensure that children's attainment is increased. This is primary school as well as the secondary school. However, what reports have found is they found that schools are using money for the general school needs rather than for that particular pupil whom that money is given to. So if you can incorporate that into answering this question as well, that'd be great.
Well, it's just that I heard this as a children in poverty question rather than an education question. Is that right?
Yes.
Can I just check?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Which is what I really wanted to address. I think the two things, and I'm happy to address both, as long as you give me the time for both, that would be fine. So the issue, I think, is really about poverty. Every family wants to do the best for their children in terms of, and especially in terms of supporting them through education, but they're barely able to. And there are three areas in our manifesto that I'd like to draw your attention to. The first is around workers' rights. I think as a mainstream party, we have remained solidly behind the ordinary working person, and we want to see an improvement in the rights of workers. This will include things like introducing a £15 minimum wage for everyone. The idea that under, I think, 18, it's £6.40 is ridiculous. That families have got people who want to work and want to be paid well so that they can actually look after themselves. We will also repeal anti-union legislation. Now, I am a really pro-union person. The unions have been vilified by this press, but actually, without them, we're losing all our protections and our rights as workers. And that's, I think, the thing that really underpins the poverty that we're in. People with the right to work, but to not have in-work poverty, which is what we're seeing at the moment. We'd also enforce things like equal pay audits, provide safe sick pay, and protect gig economy workers. You can find that within our manifesto. I would like to direct you to it. Social security is also a really big issue. People are being penalised for being unwell, for having issues around being able to work, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that continuing. So we will immediately increase universal credit and any other legacy benefits by £40 a week, and end this 4-5 week wait for benefits. It's insane. How are people supposed to be able to feed their children? And it's often families with children, as well as older people who are most suffering from the way people have been attacked through the benefit system. I could go on. One of the most important things, and I think, is how are we going to pay for this? And one of the things that we have brought in, and I think, is a wealth tax. It is ridiculous that we have so many billionaires. The numbers of billionaires who were created during the lockdown when the rest of us were suffering is unacceptable. So we're talking about a 1% tax could raise so much money to be able to pay for a much fairer system that will support workers. And so I think that's the most important thing. We've got practical things put in place to put the wealth back into the pockets of ordinary people. That's what will make a difference for children. In terms of education, I actually have a grandson who's with special educational needs, and he's statemented. And I actually have witnessed that under cover of being an artist as well. I went into school, and because of the way he presented, so the school he has a one-to-one, but he's not disruptive. So his one-to-one actually was spent helping manage that class where there were children who weren't being statemented, because it's taking forever at the moment for children to get that support. He has a very obvious physical disability, which meant it was much quicker for him to get that statement. But yes, schools are really suffering, but what I do say is I support teachers all the way, and have been out on NEU picket lines to do so, because teachers are doing the very best they can with limited resources. So I really want us to see that investment. We put more money both in their wage packets, but also into schools, and we will see a real difference. Those two things are united.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you go to the audience?
Yeah, I'd absolutely support what you said about in-work poverty. I think in-work poverty represents the majority of poverty that people are experiencing right now. So that's people who are working and their families are still growing up in poverty. The reason for that is pretty clear. We've been through a massive decline in real wages. So even though people are getting paid, might be getting pay increases, it's been below the rate of inflation. We've got massive decline in wages. We've been through the longest stagnation in real wages since the 1830s. People are earning less and less, and there is a clear reason that is happening. It's because the strength of the workers' movement has been attacked by governments, as you mentioned with the anti-trade union laws, has been attacked by governments. If we don't have a strong workers' movement, if we don't have strong trade unions, why would they give us better wages? We need to stand up for ourselves and to fight for those things, and it's the responsibility of all representatives to push for that, to oppose anti-trade union legislation and to support the workers' movement in order to push for higher wages so that people aren't living in poverty. So yeah, absolutely I would support that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Katrina. Right, due to time, we'll have to move to the final category. We'll have to move on, I'm afraid. Right, 10 seconds. Oh, okay, that opens the door. I'm afraid we'll have to move on if that's okay. We'll move on to the last category, which is housing. The average rents, I see you're excited about that. The average rent for new lets in the UK is 1,226 as of April 24. Rents have risen by 6.6% in the last year. There are approximately 15 inquiries for each rental property. As a result of high mortgage rates, there's been a reduction in number of first-time buyers. This obviously coupled with other factors such as increasing number of international students in the major cities across the UK creates a demand for affordable rental properties. What steps will you take to ensure that these demands are met? I'll give everybody a chance to speak on this. Who wishes to start? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so housing, I mean, yeah, you elucidated the problem pretty well there. It's a crisis, and it's a crisis that's self-inflicted. You know, we built more social housing in 1969 than in the last 12 years combined. The private housing developers donate money to the Conservative Party in particular, and then the Conservative Party promote these policies like Help to Buy, right? Which is great for the demand side, because the demand goes up, and then the housing developers make money off this. So it's a supply side issue. We need more housing. I think that's pretty obvious. The SDP pledged to build 100,000 social homes every year. But another aspect I just want to draw attention to is the quality of the housing. You know, there was a boy in Rochdale that died from the mould in the room. Something we are promoting is a condition certificate, which is basically like a housing MOT. So all private rental will require a condition certificate in order to obtain rent on houses.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, so we know that there's obviously a massive housing problem here. We see the homeless people in Piccadilly. We see the homeless veterans in the streets, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the Tory government did not solve this problem. Now, one of the things that they pledged when they came into power many years ago was that they will get rid of it. Now, homelessness has only gone worse, and we can talk about, of course, building as many new houses as we can, and that's the obvious solution. And actually, in the Workers' Party, we do advocate for that. And one of the things that we will be pushing is a massive social housing programme, where sort of a large-scale social housing programme to build across the country. Now, in terms of funding that, the UK, thanks to Boris Johnson, pledged £12.5 billion to Ukraine. They pledged all this money for their military, and they've got people who fought with their lives for this country, for our freedom, homeless, no shelter, nothing. So what we really need to do is look at our expenditure. Where is our money going? Why is our money going to Ukraine? Why is our money going to Israel? Why is our money going to NATO? We need more houses. We need to look after the homeless people, and we need to look after our vulnerable.
Okay, I second that, what was said from both sides. Social housing and as well as having affordable housing. I had someone tell me a statistic that by the time my children, I've got 5 children, okay, so by the time my children get old or grow up, they won't be able to own a house. That made me really sad. Why are we living in a society where our children won't be able to own a house? Rent is dead money. You're spending money and rent's going up. And if we talk about cost of living rising and people not having enough money in their pocket, and the rise of food banks, the rise of homelessness, Manchester's had Labour councillors for years. I'm not going to go into how many years they've actually had it for, but they used to have a policy, no second night out. As soon as I heard about it, I tried helping a number of homeless people on the streets to get them out, and then the people came to collect them, and they said, and on the second day they were still out on the street. So I went up to the lady and I said, you're still out. I arranged for you to be picked up and your housing to be sorted out. And she said, well, no one. They did come, but they didn't collect me. So I rang the council again, and the council said, well, technically she's not homeless because she wasn't lying down; she was sitting up. So somewhere down the line our policies are wrong. We need to sort the policies out, as well as housing. Oh, you're right to say homelessness is a big issue, poverty, the rise of food banks. Let's stop spending money on war, stop spending money on crime, war crimes, stop spending money on criminals that are involved in it, whether you call them a politician from another country, whoever. Stop spending money on that, spend money on the UK, on the people from the UK. Thank you.
I think as you both have kind of highlighted, all of these issues that we've talked about tonight are connected. obviously we can think about particular policies in certain situations, but really if we want to understand them at the root, every single one of these is connected. The housing crisis, poverty, education, imperialism, war, all of these things are connected. And from our perspective, if we keep batting from one party to the other, each is suggesting one minor change to the situation that we're in, we are never going to fundamentally change society as a whole. We need to recognise that when we treat things like housing, health, the well-being of children, these are fundamental needs of society, and when we treat them as something that you can make profit out of, then this is the result that we're going to get. All of these things in crisis. We need a fundamental change in society as a whole. We need a society that is not driven by profit, a society that is not in the interest of a few people who own massive amounts of wealth at the top of society and live a life that is so alien to the rest of us. We need a society in which all of us share together, whatever country we're from, whatever background we're from, where we all share together and we all support each other as a community, and we share things in common with each other. And that's the vision of communism that we support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think there are two pathways around housing. There is one which is everybody having the right to a decent home, a warm home, a home that is affordable to keep warm, that's clean, and that they have a right to live in for life. And the fact that we have been sold this idea that homes and owning houses is the best way to make a fast buck in this country. And that is the thing that we need to, those two things can't coexist. In terms of, we have policies around better landlords. We have a Fair Landlords Act in Greater Manchester, and that's good. We don't want to have homes where children die. We definitely don't, none of us. However, our own housing situation, we don't want to know that our neighbours, there might be a house with a child where the damp and the mould gets into their lungs and they can't breathe and they die. But what also don't we want? And I tell you what I think we don't want. We need to give up this myth that this is the way that we as individuals can be really good and make money. Can we just remove ourselves from that? All the programs on TV, that Homes Under the Hammer, all those things that push that down our throats, it's at the expense of people. So I'm going to talk about the practical things again. The Green Party is saying, like others, we're committing to building 150,000 new social homes annually. And one of the things we're going to do is end the right to buy. Now, that may not be the most popular, and the reasons it's not popular is people believe that it's the only way they're going to be able to stabilise. And actually, because social housing has been so underfunded, that actually it no longer feels like a secure way forward. There was a time 30 years ago that if you lived in social housing, you knew that your children could. Now our children can't afford to live on the same street as us because the house prices have gone up, the rent prices. Actually, it's more expensive in this city to rent than it is to buy. If you can get onto the mortgage ladder, you get more support for that. But what I don't like to see is the amount of money that we're investing in landlords. So you're talking about street homeless. In this city, the majority of homeless is not street homeless. It's actually people who are in short-term accommodation, families. And short-term accommodation, that can be 5 years, living in a home that you can't call your own, living in a home that you can't invest in, that you can't actually make safe and secure for your family. And we would look at the rent controls and an end to no-fault evictions. There's some really simple ways that we can make housing safe and affordable for everyone.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Does everybody have a chance?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, the audience is down. Any questions with regards to housing? Yes.
Young people receive the lowest rate of local housing allowance, and that doesn't change even if they're homeless. So will you give homeless young people a fair chance to move on by raising their rates?
Thank you. Should we start with, who wants to start?
Oh, I'm just going to say yes. Absolutely. a bit of elaboration. An investment in young people being able to have homes, to be able to live, and for me it underpins the actual cohesion of our communities. We're having more and more young people who aren't able to live with their parents or near their parents, grandchildren being brought up miles away from their grandparents. Yes, an investment in young people. There should be no reason. The housing costs the same. You know, it's not like as a young person you can go to your landlord and say, actually I'm young, I'm not going to get very much money, can I have less rent? That doesn't work. I mean, I think capping rents is the other side of that. Rent controls, no-fault evictions, it's all part of the same question. It's about changing the way we support people in accommodation, whether it's supporting them to buy their own homes or supporting them to rent decent homes at fair rents, and also homes that are actually affordable to run. We've got a whole programme of retrofit and also any new houses being built at Passive House, so people aren't having to choose between whether they pay their bills or whether they buy food. Let's have decent housing for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of avenues we could go down in terms of addressing that. Now, when it comes to taxation, one of the things that the Workers' Party does advocate is, to make the tax-free allowance increase to £21,200. Now, this will approximately help 2 million people in the UK, and that will, I imagine, be mainly younger people, starting out with their first jobs. There's also another avenue to look at in terms of, obviously, we mentioned the housing, social housing increase. There's also renationalisation in terms of our water, our rail, our transport. These should be in the control of the government, really. And we have private companies that are absolutely draining our resources, and it goes back to, why did we sell it in the first place? Why did the Tories, why did the Labour Party do this? We're going to see more of that when they do eventually come into power, because we know that they have very big lobby groups that have interests that want to increase their profits and put our hard-earned money into their pockets. So I think, we need to take a holistic approach. We need to really put the control back into the workers, the people that make the building blocks of this country, the people that are going to do the majority of the voting. Thank you.
I think everyone's right in what they're saying, or just to add on to that, the Help to Buy scheme should also be extended out to Help to Rent. I think that if we look at the pay, if everything is equal, and the Equals Pay Act should support same wages for the same type of work, same salaries for the same type of work, not discriminate against age. If I go to get a meal, being my age, which I won't disclose, and I go out with a 20-year-old to go and buy some food, the prices are going to be different because they're 20, and so the cost of living and the costs that they meet for rent and everything will be the same. So the pay should also be the same.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think there should be, especially as a young person, I'm keen for. Are we turning this off somehow? I don't know why. I mean, involved in a certain way. Your question was about the housing benefit. What is the age? Is it 35? I can't think of the. Yeah, I went to. This sounds like a very politician thing to say, but I went to visit a homelessness charity recently, and they were telling me about this, and they said there's an incentive for landlords to take the older people because they know that the older people have a higher housing benefit, which is just crazy in my mind. I just want to shoehorn one other thing in here about the housing that I think is important, is that yes, it's a huge issue and it's a crisis that we need to address, but we also need to use this as an opportunity, because I think there are a few things that unify us now as a country, and one of them could be this. A national project where we say we need new houses, we need to build new towns, and we need to build beautiful. Let's kickstart a new era of British architecture. Let's train up our young people in order to do that, and let's bring us together and give us something that we can be proud of as a country.
Absolutely. We would support any measures that would improve the situation of housing for young people. Particularly when we were door knocking in Ancoats, that was a massive experience that families were being separated from each other. People couldn't get houses close to where they've grown up. They couldn't get anywhere to rent or live close to where they've grown up. So that is a kind of massive issue that we've come across when we've been talking to people in the community. I mean, one thing that I think is very important and something we've tried to kind of raise in our manifesto as well is supporting the demands that come out of organisations like the Greater Manchester Tenants Union in Greater Manchester that organise renters and try to raise the demands of those renters, so around things like rent controls, around more investment in social housing, tougher enforcement against landlords, that kind of thing. Obviously, it goes back to a lot of what we've said. What can we do from our position or with the vote that we get? We're not going to be forming the next government, but we absolutely can support those organisations that are part of communities that are raising those demands and raising those strategies.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you very much. We just had one more question from the gentleman here that we'll take before we close.
Thank you. My name is Mr. Raja. I've been working in Manchester for more than 3 decades, and some of you are familiar of, every one of you talking affordable housing. What is affordable housing? 150k, 100,000, 200,000, you call that affordable housing? It's not affordable housing at all. I have spoken on these issues myself.
If we can keep the question short, please.
Because the problem, madam, is that obviously these are our politicians who are standing here and in this election, and some of them, they're first time they're standing here, So the thing is, I have questioned Andy Burnham on question time myself. What is affordable? First of all, we need to build on a brownfield, not on a greenfield, because we need a greenfield for our next generation, which is very important. So he says he's a sweet talker because obviously there in the northeast there is a brownfield site which is being built, and the southern trees and in the city centre, etc. But the Labour, they want to build on a greenfield. We don't want to build on greenfield. We want to build on a brownfield. I don't know whether you know that how many houses do we need. The madam there from the Green Party, she said that we're going to build 150,000. So in the next 5 years, we need 1.5 million houses in the United Kingdom for our next generations. So I don't know how much homework you guys have done. But yes, that's fine. So we now can answer which is important. And so I want to know what's affordable housing, because some of the landlords here charging high rent for 2 bedrooms. These rents are very high, but they're not being controlled at all. But in Manchester, whether you're young, the age does not fast you, because you're entitled to over £100 a week rent to any accommodation. That's the going rate. So outside, whether it's Bolton, Rochdale and Bury, it's £80. So you need to work on these things as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that statement. Thank you very much. Okay, just before we move on to the closing statements.
Was that a statement or a question?
I think that was a statement rather than a question.
I think it was.
Can I answer it? I'll just say, what is affordable housing? Well, the problem is if we say to private developers, go and build these houses, they will. It's in their best interests, right, to create homes that they can sell for the most money. This is why social housing is so important. Our policy, if you're interested, read our housing policy. We will establish a British Housing Corporation, which will be in charge of making sure that these houses are affordable. I think that's really important. I want to go back to one other point on this, is that to say we need 1.5 million homes, the figure I read was 1 million homes, and to say that we should be taking in net migration figures of 745,000 a year is an illogical response to this question.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, Sebastian, for that response. Before we move on to the closing statements, As many of you are aware, there has been the broadcast of Andrew Parker, who's made homophobic, racial slurs, as well as Islamophobic commentary, as broadcasted by Channel 4. So my question to you on the back of that is, do you support the all-party parliamentary group's definition of Islamophobia? If we can get a response from everybody, and then we can move on to closing statements. Shall I repeat the question? Okay, so everybody's familiar with Andrew Parker, the controversy surrounding Andrew Parker? No, not familiar? Okay. Well, perhaps you're very familiar with that. Excellent. So racial slurs were made against individuals from obviously from Pakistani heritage with regards to this, as well as he made Islamophobic commentary saying that Muslims should be kicked out, places like this, mosques and centres should be turned into Wetherspoons pubs. And Keir Starmer is also on record for making derogatory and deplorable remarks against the Bangladeshi community. So my question is, as individuals who are wanting to be elected for this constituency, firstly, what do you make of that? And secondly, do you support the all-party parliamentary group's definition of Islamophobia?
Yeah, I'll answer first, and I just want to say yes, and I want to say that that's absolutely disgraceful. And when I talk about why I'm running, it goes back to the conflict in Palestine. No, I'll keep it brief, because what's happening is that they dehumanize our people, right? I'm a Muslim, of course I'm going to stand against Islamophobia, of course that's very important to me, and of course I'm going to champion for it. But there's a bigger root to this problem, right? When you dehumanize people and you make the killing of people in Palestine, in Iraq, in Afghanistan acceptable, what do you expect? And Keir Starmer is absolutely disgraceful. He did not condemn the genocide at all. In fact, he supported it. And look what he did to the Bengali community. All they did was support Labour for generations. Why did he speak out against the Bengalis?
I want to keep mine short. I grew up in 1980s and we grew up with the Thatcher government. We fought against it then and we'll fight against it now.
Thank you very much.
So I think the best way to negate prejudice is exposure. Our communities have become more and more divided, and we need to improve the social cohesion, especially in parts of Manchester. I love what you guys are doing at the mosque, and Mohammed was explaining to me that you run these exercise classes, people come in from other parts of Cheetham Hill. I think that's great, and we need more of that, because I think when people are exposed to people of different cultures, different religions, different races, prejudice decreases.
I'm not familiar with the exact definition that they've created, but yeah, absolutely. I'm opposed to racism of any kind, and I also recognise that over the past 25 years that's been particularly directed towards the Muslim community. I've grown up in Bolton, which is a very diverse town and has a long history of a Muslim community, and that's the world that I've grown up in. That's close to my heart, and yeah, absolutely. I think on the nature of Keir Starmer's comments and the comments from Reform, I think we have to put this in the context of what has happened in society as a whole. We have allowed ourselves to be pulled further and further to the right. The Labour Party has pulled itself further to the right because we are not standing up for a real alternative, and that's what we are trying to put forward. Thank you.
I'm also not familiar with the definition of Islamophobia by the all-party group. What I am familiar with is race hate crime from a personal perspective, and seeing how that's promoted by this society and how to tackle that. And I tell you how we tackle that. While we still believe there's a political solution, we join a political party. And in the Green Party, we've just recently affiliated the Muslim Greens, and I'm really proud that one of the founders is here in the audience, and I was also very pleased to be able to support that. As a Reva, I remain quite under the radar with my faith, but I think it's really important that if we're going to really investigate what is Islamophobia, how it impacts on our community, we need to make sure there are Muslims in political parties making that change, making those statements, and actually presenting your perspective within a political perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm sure you will be very glad to hear. If we can have closing statements from everybody, keep it to 40 seconds, please.
Oh, 40 seconds.
Yes.
I just quickly need to correct one of my maths from earlier. I said that it would take 4 hours. It's actually 2.5 hours of nuclear deterrence money, so I want to clarify that. Now, in terms of my closing statement, really, this is about taking a stand to Labour. You know, regardless of who you vote for on this panel, if we do manage to break that two-party dominance, it will send absolute shockwaves across the country. Now, Manchester Central is one of the biggest constituencies in this whole country. Lucy Powell, who's the sitting MP, by the way, has made no efforts to canvass around here. You could check her social media for that. They take this seat for granted. Now, should she lose this seat, it will be massive for Labour. She's she's a shadow minister, and of course, that's a very huge thing. Now, it's about challenging the status quo. It's about standing up to the norms, making a resistance to change. And yeah, so, and also, in regards to Labour, they will make they make a lot of promises to all of us. Please do not forget that Labour made 27 U-turns. 27, right? They will promise us the world. They will. We know what they. They're trying to get behind the bandwagon of the genocide and sticking against it. But in November, when they had the opportunity to stop it, when 10,000 people lost their lives, they all abstained. All of them.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just going to end with that one quote, that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Make your vote count. 1 and 1 is it 2? No, 1 and 1's 11. Okay, so get together, get behind, put it behind you, and vote for. They think it's a safe seat. How can anything be a safe seat? Don't make your vote go to waste. World War II, or after World War II, the third election which they won, and they've been getting it for like 3 consecutive terms for 12 years. They won it with an 18% voter turnout. That was Manchester Central's voting turnout. 18%. We literally gave it away. Don't give it away. Get out and vote.
Thank you, Sabina.
So I'm not here to get you to vote for me. I'd love it if you did, obviously. But the problems we're facing right now will not be solved next Thursday. And if you vote for me, everything won't be great all of a sudden. I'm very, very worried about our democracy. I don't know if you saw the Trump-Biden debate last night, but we are at serious risk of following in America's example. And we have to do something radical, do something different if we are to change things. I'm here tonight because I want to learn from you guys and from the community here about what are the problems here and how can we start to address things. And I'm also here to explain about the SDP, who I think have very sensible policies on a lot of issues. If you'd like to have a manifesto, I've got a few with me, so do come and speak to me afterwards.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you very much. Katrina?
Thank you very much for listening to us tonight. We are asking for you to vote for us, but more than that, we're asking for you to engage with the idea of a real alternative in society. It's not something that you can just vote for. That's part of it, to give it a platform, but it's about a more fundamental change that needs to happen in society as a whole. It's about a wider transformation. It's not something that's easy, it's not something that will happen overnight, but as we've talked about, all of these different issues, all of these different crises that we face in society, all of them have a shared root in the capitalist system, and that is the thing that needs changing, that is the thing that needs transforming. And if we just keep tinkering around at the edges, we are just going to keep getting these problems over and over again. So if you've got one of our leaflets, please give it a read. As I say, we want your vote, but more than that, we want you to engage with the change that needs to happen in society as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our candidates for coming out this evening. Oh, beg your pardon, I did.
No. First of all, thank you. Thank you for being here. I know that you're here because you care. You care about the people of Manchester Central, you care about the people of Cheetham Hill, and so do I. All the policies that I've talked about have been shaped by people like you, for people like you. But none of it will work unless you want it to. Then the other part is their business as usual, the two main parties. You're not talking about people here. So as your MP, I can assure you I will always be here to listen. I will be here to learn and I'll be here to act. Always with your interests at heart. And only as a Green MP can I give you that assurance. Because we have a manifesto that has been shaped by you, people like you. And one of the reasons that I can say that honestly is the Green Party takes no money from corporations. We only have you, the voters, to answer to. And that's why you are so important, and that's why a vote for us, for me, as our representative, really counts. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Thank you to our candidates for coming out this evening.
I know you concluded, you probably, because I came late, was there a question put by the crime in this area?
There was a lot of questions that we had to sift through
Because there's been over 30 turf shootings in Cheetham Hill.
that's fine. The candidates will be here, I hope, for a couple of minutes after we complete this, and you can have a private chat with them if you wish. There will be a networking opportunity. I'm really sorry, we are quite tight on time, so we will have to conclude, I'm afraid.
I agree with you, but this is very important.
I agree.
Crime is very important. And
That's fine, brother. I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you. I understand. Thank you very
That we put on
much.
hold because of me and my team.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you everybody for coming out this evening. It's been a pleasure to host our candidates. If we can give them a round of applause.
And we also thank you for hosting this. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.